Hello everyone, welcome to Pratham Test Prep YouTube channel and welcome to I welcome each and everyone here. Good afternoon. I'm Ashish Bhargav. So welcome to another episode of Deep Dive, and today topic is very important, that is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act FCRA. These days in the news, and what exactly is FCRA is all about, because as we know, in short, if we talk about FCRA, that simply means that we can say is Foreign Contributions Regulation Act. But what is for, how the, who can get the advantage, who cannot get the advantage, how the NGOs, how the FCRA's Act is, we can say, hi Shagun, I hope you are doing well. So Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, how it is, it work for the NGO, and how the any foreigners can send a fund to the government of India, no, not government of India, and NGO. So this is all about the session, that about current affairs. The best way to about current affairs, study newspaper and magazines. And now a little progress each day adds up to a big result. Try to focus and watch each and everything which is available on the Pratham Test Prep YouTube channel. If you are new in this channel, please subscribe it. The capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill. The willingness to learn is a choice. So try to improve your skills, and as you know, failure is only the opportunity to begin again the time more intelligently. So do not think like if you got less marks in the mock test. So here is the article is FCRA, which is that we can say Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. So it gives license to Rajiv Gandhi Foundation and Rajiv Gandhi Charitable Trust, how it was origin, how the NGO got funded. In short, if we talk about any individuals got funded from, we can say, from the foreign country, any individuals, any association, or we can say any NGOs, one who got fund from the foreign country, that it will be work as a Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. And any law aspirants must take note of this term often seen in the news due to amendments on NGO. And at the end we will solve the question that is based on FCRA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. And what we will discuss in this session about FCRA, what is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, and second that we discuss about foreign funding of NGO, how the non-governmental organizations having fund in the NGOs, and third thing that we will discuss in this session is applicability of FCRA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Fourth, who cannot receive foreign contributions, that we will also discuss. Then we discuss about the 2020 amendments of Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, and what is a foreign contribution under FCRA. And then we discuss about prior reference category, and then the last one we discuss the major provisions of the Foreign Contributions Act and the need for such legislation. This is all about the session that we will discuss now. So in detail that we will discuss, if we talk about the newspaper article, so here we can see it's from the Indian Express article, it's October 23rd. And as you know, in the deep dive topic that we discuss about each and every concept in a very, it means that we will discuss about any in the detailed manner and such a pragmatic view, so that the students can have a good command over the topic, and any questions if it is asked in the law entrance exam, that you will be able to solve the questions. Now if we talk about the articles is from the Indian Express, and again we discuss about the article is again this same article is from Indian Express. Here's the article is from the Indian Express, that we can say explained what is FCRA, the law, for the NGO funding. If you talk about the Hindu article, the Hindu explains what is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act and how does it control donations. So these are all articles we discussed in such a simple and lucid manner, so that the students have a good command over how we need to make notes and short notes. So now in short, if we talk about the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, in short, that we can say that NGOs, if any NGO owner who got fund from the foreign country, that have to be registered with the Ministry of Home Affairs, that is FCRA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. See, FCRA seeks to regulate the acceptance and utilization of foreign contributions or foreign hospitality by certain individuals or associations or companies. So make sure this is not only confined for the NGOs, that is also for the association, individuals and company. Association, individuals and company. So as we know that it is a, like we can say, and to prohibit acceptance and utilization for any activity detrimental to the national interest. Acceptance and utilization, which means that if you accept money for the purpose of, make term like accept and utilization, accept and utilization. If you accept in the purpose of doing education for the slum student, so if there any foreign fund that you will receive for the purpose of to giving education for the slum student, that you cannot spend money with another purpose, like if you cannot spend money on the purpose of helping for the orphanage people, you cannot spend money for the beggar, you cannot spend money for apart from the slum students. So if you get the acceptance from the any foreign country that you cannot utilize, that you cannot spend it for the different activities, that would be detrimental for the national interest. As we know, it's tarnishing the image of NGOs. And we can say one more thing, if the NGO got funded from the vulnerable section of the society, and we can say that if you got $200 and if that NGO is we can say is funding to some terrorist organization, some anti-social elements that can get advantage, so that registration would be cancelled. So this law was enacted during the emergency 1976. You need to know about the how the things was begin it. So the law was enacted during the emergency in 1976 amid apprehension that foreign powers were interfering in India's affair by pumping funds through the independent organization. At the time of emergency 1976, as we know, the many we can say many foreign organizations as in a way that they are funding to the country, and that is against the sovereignty of our nation. And the different foreign powers were interfering in India's affair by pumping in funds through independent organizations. So the act prohibits receipt of foreign funds by candidate for elections, journalists of or newspaper or media broadcast companies, judges and government servants, members of legislation and political parties and their office bearers and organization of a political nature. Now we need to keep in mind these all things that we discuss in a detailed manner and in such a pragmatic view, so that the student will not skip any questions in the examination if it would be asked in your exam that what is FCRA. So make sure that initially we will discuss about FCRA and how it was originated the very first time in our country is 1976 in the time of emergency. Now we discuss this article in a detailed manner, like this one is same, what is FCRA and law related to the NGO funding, and the Hindu article is from here, like Foreign Contribution Regulation Act and how does it control donations. Now if we talk about FCRA, the FCRA was enacted during the emergency 1976 amid apprehension that foreign powers were interfering in India's affairs by pumping money into the country through independent organizations. As we know that our country is too much vulnerable in terms of, we can say, the poverty is concerned, but these concerns were in fact even older. They have been expressed in Parliament in early 1969. The law sought to regulate foreign donations to individuals and associations so that they function in a manner consistent with the value of sovereign democratic republic. As we can see, the sovereign democratic republic, the word is enshrined in our preamble as well. An amended FCRA was enacted under UPA government in 2010, the very first time, and consolidated the law on utilization of foreign funds to prohibit the use of any activities detrimental to national interest. Because of the reason behind, if the NGO, which we can say the many regulations in our country, it is to be, like we can say, regulated in many manners, and we can say that if there is many NGOs who's working for the vulnerable and different sections of the society, if they are funding from the foreign funds and they utilize some other funds and they are somehow supporting any political parties, that would be detrimental for the national interest. And one more thing, the law was amended again by the current government in 2020, giving the government tighter control and scrutiny over the receipt and utilization of foreign funds by utilization. Receipt, which means simply that for the what purpose. If you got money for the purpose of education, you cannot spend money on the purpose of orphanage and purpose of some different things. This is all about receipt and utilization of foreign funds by NGO. Broadly, the FCRA requires every person, NGO seeking to receive foreign donation to be registered under the Act, to open a bank account for the receipt, and we can say the Aadhaar card is mandatory so that we can easily find it out the which person is taking this NGO, and if the person is spending money some different purpose, we can easily catch them. And as we know that the FCRA requires every person and NGO seeking to receive foreign donations to be registered under the Act. Second, to open a bank account for the receipt or to the foreign funds in the State Bank of India in Delhi. Only one branch is available. Third, to utilize those funds only to the purpose for which they have been received as stipulated in the Act. And one more thing that we can say, they are also required to file annual returns, and they must not transfer the fund to another NGO. Sometimes, as we can see, they are the ex-person who established the two NGOs is there. So one NGO is funding to the another one. So that this required the file annual returns, and they must not transfer the funds to the another NGO. The Act prohibits the receipt of foreign funds by candidate for elections, journalist, newspaper, media broadcast company, judges and government servant, member of the legislature and political parties or their office bearers, and the organizations or political nature. These are exempted from the taking the funds from the different organizations. Now, if we talk about the law sought to regulate foreign donations to individuals and associations so that they function in a manner consistent with the value of sovereign democratic republic. So as we know that if any fund is received from the ex-NGO is from the foreign country, and if the purpose was for the education, that we cannot spend for the purpose of, we cannot say like in the other purpose, like you cannot spend money in the orphanage, you cannot spend money for the slum people. So the foreign funding in India is regulated under FCRA Act. Individuals are permitted to accept foreign contribution without permission of MHA. Individuals, which means that any person, if you got some kind of remittance of any, if your brother is working, if your brother is we can say if your brother is working in USA and he is giving some money to you, that does not comes under the ambit of FCRA Act, which is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. However, the monetary limit for acceptance for such foreign contribution shall be less than 25k, and it is implemented by the Ministry of Home Affairs. And FCRA was enacted during the emergency very first time in 1976. And that time that foreign country is pumping the power to the Indian sovereign, and amid that we can say foreign powers were interfering the India's affair by pumping money into the country through independent organizations. These concerns were in fact even older. They had been expressed in Parliament early in 1969. But it was not in that matter. So the very first time in the emergency, the first time Foreign Contribution Regulation Act was enacted in 1976. What was the major amendments in FCRA? The very first time in 2010 and then 2020. What were the changes in the two times was that happened? And it amended in the two times, and amended FCRA were enacted under UPA government. UPA, which means United Public Alliance government, which means where the Congress government is in the, we can say, not in the full majority, then we can say the UPA as Congress plus other different regional parties make a coalition in that times, that we can say is a UPA. Similar like in NDA where BJP is not in the full majority, so that BJP having coalition of the regional party, that we can say is NDA. So UPA government of 2010 to consolidate the law on utilization on foreign funds and to prohibit their use of any activities which is detrimental for the national interest. Second thing that we need to keep in mind, the law was amended again by the current government of 2020, giving the government tighter control and scrutiny over the receipt and utilization. What does it mean? The word has been mentioned, receipt and utilization. Receipt, which means how many funds you have accepted. And utilization, which means that if you got fund with the purpose of we can say slum education, that we cannot spend on orphanage. So whatever the purpose you have received, you have to spend the same purpose. So that if any NGO is somehow is we can say helping to the any political party, that we can easily okay, keep an eye on that. It should be noted that many recipients of foreign contribution have not utilized the same for the purpose of which they were registered or granted prior permission under the FCRA 2010 that was amended in 2020. So what are the some key highlights in 2020 amendment that is very, very important? It bars public servants from receiving foreign contributions. So any public servants that is exempt, that we cannot take the foreign contributions. It prohibits the transfer of foreign contribution to any other person. An Aadhaar number is mandatory for all office bearers, directors or key functionaries of a person receiving foreign contribution. So that if the person having bearing an Aadhaar card, we can easily catch them person if he is involved in such activities which is detrimental for our countries countries sovereignty, countries sovereign and sovereign interest, and we can say it is countries securities. So Aadhaar number is mandatory for all office bearers, directors or key functionaries of a person receiving foreign contribution as an identification document. The foreign contribution must be received only in an account designated by the bank FCRA account in such branches of the State Bank of India, New Delhi. So if for foreign contribution, if they any, as we know that corporate social responsibility CSR, if any Indian company is giving fund to that, so for example, if a Tata company is giving fund to any NGOs, that does not comes under the FCRAs. If the India's money is in India's interest, that does not comes under the FCRA. But if any foreign company is giving fund to the NGOs, that comes under the FCRAs. So as per the corporate social responsibility, which came into force in 2015, so that we can say FCRA accounts, such branches of the State Bank of India, New Delhi must be listed, and no funds other than foreign contribution should be received or deposit in this account. What if it is only for the purpose of in this account, if any ex NGOs registered with the FCRA and the account is registered with State Bank of India, New Delhi, that account for this company is only for the foreign contribution, that no other amount should be received in that account. It allowed the government to restrict usage of unutilized foreign contribution. This may be done if, based on inquiry, the government believes that such person has contravened provision of FCRA. While NGO earlier could use up to 50% funds for administrative use, the new amendment restricted this use to 20%. So earlier it was 50%, now it is restricted the use of only 20%, we can use it. What are the requirements? So FCRA requires every person or NGO which is non-governmental organization seeking to receive foreign donations to be, first condition should be registered under the Act. Second, to open a bank account to the receipt of foreign funds in the State Bank of India, Delhi. Third, to utilize those funds only for the purpose of which they have been received or stipulated in the Act. And fourth, they are also required to file annual returns, and they must be transferred and fund to another NGO. Must not transfer to another NGO. If X NGO received $2,000, so that we cannot go to they cannot transfer to another NGO. What does the Act prohibits? The Act prohibits the receipt of foreign funds by candidate for election, journalist or newspaper and media broadcast companies, judges and government servant, member of legislature and political parties, or their office bearers, organization of a political nature. So basically, candidates who is electing, who is in election, so that we cannot take a fund from the foreign country and journalist or newspaper and media broadcast company, because if the media is, it can consider the fourth pillar of the democracy. If we can say, if they're funded by the foreign country of any political parties, so they can be very biased and they can be having a news that is, we can say, only for the supporting that political parties. That would be detrimental for the our country's security. Judges and government servant, member of legislature and political parties of their office bear an organization of a political nature. What are the new changes and new rules? In the first week of July this year, MHA effected changes of FCRA rules through gazette notification, increased the number of compoundable offences under Act 17 to 12. The other key changes were exemptions from intimation to the government for contribution less than 10 lakhs. The earlier limit was rupees 1 lakh. Receipt from the relative abroad, and increase in time limit for intimation of opening a bank account. Under the new rules, political parties, legislature member, election candidates, media house, among others, all barred from receiving foreign contributions, will no longer be prosecuted if they receive foreign contribution from relatives. If the foreign contribution is taken from the relatives, that we cannot say it is be prosecuted. And we can say, if they receive foreign contribution from relatives abroad and fail to intimate the government within 90 days. However, the recipient will be required to pay 5% of the foreign contribution received. How does FCRA registration granted? First position, that the NGOs that want to receive foreign funds must apply online in a prescribed format with the required documentation. FCRA registrations are granted to individuals or associations that have definite cultural, economic, educational, and religious and social programs. Following the applications by the NGO, the MHA makes inquiries through the Intelligence Bureau into the antecedents of the applicant and accordingly process of the applications. Why we are discussing about the step? Because steps is very important, because sometimes they will ask you in MCQs. Under the FCRA, the applicant should not be fictitious or benami and should not have been prosecuted or convicted for indulging any activities aimed at conversion through inducement or force, either directly or indirectly, from one religious faith to another. The applicant should not have been prosecuted for or convicted for creating communal tensions, disharmony, should not have been found guilty of diversion or misutilization of funds, and should not be engaged or likely to be engaged in the propagation of sedition. MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs, is required to approve or reject the applications within 90 days. In case of failure to process an applicant in the given time, the MHA is expected to inform the NGO of the reasons for the same. Once granted, FCRA registration is valid for the 5 years. Make sure this registration is valid for only for 5 years. The NGO are expected to apply for the renewal within 6 months, the date of expiry of the registration. In case of failure to apply the renewal, the registration is deemed to have expired and NGO is no longer entitled to receive foreign funds or utilize its existing fund without permission from the ministry. What have been recent issues related to the FCRA? As we know, the Union Home Ministry suspended license of some NGOs who were alleged to have used foreign contributions for religious conversion. Such situations could have adversely affected the internal security of the country, and the FCRA registrations of the close to 5,900 NGOs, including Oxfam India Trust and Indian Medical Association, lapsed on December 31st last year. And why the government is doing such activities? As we know that if the NGOs in our country, if taking funds from the foreign nations and indulge in some many activities, which is giving funds to the antisocial elements, and giving funds to the criminals, giving funds to the political parties, that would be very dangerous for our country's interest. That's why Ministry of Home Affairs is taking action for those NGOs. Several international and well-known NGOs such as Compassion International, Greenpeace India, Subrak Trust, Lawyers Collective, Amnesty International, Ford Foundation have come under the government scanner for alleged violation of FCRA. Until 2011, there were more than 40,000 NGOs registered under FCRA in India. The number is only 16,000. The Supreme Court upheld the constitutional validity of the Foreign Contribution Amendment Act of 2020. It held that receiving foreign donations cannot be absolute right and can be regulated by the Parliament. Make sure the PM Cares Fund received an exemption from all provisions of the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. So PM Cares Fund, that does not count the FCRA Act. That PM Cares the foreign funds can be received, and that was not in the ambit of FCRA Act. How is it different from the present digital cash that we use? Using a just a second. Okay, when the registration is suspended or cancelled. So as we can say, the MHA on inspection of accounts on receiving any adverse input against the functioning of an association can suspend the so that we can say Ministry of Home Affairs have a sovereign authority to cancel the registration of any NGOs, can suspend the FCRA registration initially for 180 days, which means the last 6 months. Until a decision is taken, the association cannot receive any fresh donation and cannot utilize more than 25% of amount available in the designated bank account without permission of the MHA. The MHA can cancel the registration of an organization which will not be eligible for registration or grant prior permission for 3 years from the date of cancellation. The government can crack down on foreign donors such as US-based Compassion, Food Foundation, World Movement of Democracy, Open Society Foundation, and National Endowment for Democracy. The donors have been placed on a watch list on the prior permission category, barring from them from sending money to association without MHA clearance. Who cannot accept foreign contribution? I told you, election candidate, member of any legislature, MPs, member of parliament, and a member of legislative assembly, political party or office bearer thereof, organization of political nature, correspondent, columnist, cartoonist, editor, owner, printer or publisher of a registered newspaper, judge, government servant or employee of any corporation or any other body controlled or owned by the government. Association of company engaged in the production of or broadcast of audio news, audiovisual news, current affairs program through any electronic mode, any other individuals or association who have been specifically prohibited by the central government. What is the criticism against these changes? NGA questioning the law consider prohibition on transfer arbitrary and too heavy restrictions. One of its consequences is that recipient cannot fund other organizations. When foreign help is received as materials, it becomes impossible to share the aid if the recipient NGO does not have the means to distribute on its own. And the court wanted to know whether this means that one organization funding other organization for designated activities is completely prohibited. There is no rational link between designating a particular branch of a bank with the objective of preserving national interest. It is also inconvenient as the NGO might be operating elsewhere. They have also cited the recent Supreme Court judgment on the alleged use of Pegasus spyware. As you have heard, that is argued the national security cannot be cited as a reason without adequate justification. 2019 alone, more than 1,800 NGO lost their license to receive foreign funding. What needs to be done? What should be the way forward? A national accreditation council consisting of academic activists, retired bureaucrats should be made to ensure compliance by an NGO. There should be better coordination between ministries of Home Affairs and Finance in terms of monitoring and regulating illicit and unaccounted funds. A regulatory mechanism to keep a watch on financial activities of NGOs and voluntary organizations, the need of the hour. Citizens today are keen to play an active role in the process that shape their lives, and it is important that their participation in democracy go beyond the ritual of voting and should include promotion of social justice, gender equity and inclusions. Now we have done all the aspect of Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. We have done all these all the aspect that has to be done in FCRA, who can get fund from the FCRA, who can exempt it, how PM Cares fund was exempted, and we can say how the amendments of FCRA 2010 and 2020 was done. Now it's time to questions of the day, where we will solve the question that is based on Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Here is the very first question. With reference to the Foreign Contribution Regulations Amendment Bill 2020, consider the following statements. It prohibits public servants from receiving foreign contributions. It makes the Aadhaar number mandatory for receiving foreign contribution. Which of the statement given are correct? Now we have already covered in this session, so it is quite easy for you, one who has watched this session. Okay, so as we know, it prohibits public servant from receiving foreign contributions. Yes, it makes the Aadhaar number is mandatory, so it is also correct. So yes, both the statement is correct. Correct answer 1 and 2. The Foreign Contribution Amendment Bill 2020 was passed by Parliament. The bill amend the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 2010. The bill bars public servant from receiving foreign contribution. Statement first is correct. Public servant includes any person who is service or pay the government or remunerated by the government for the performance of any public duty. The bill makes Aadhaar number mandatory for all office bearers, directors or key functionaries of a person receiving the foreign contribution as an identification document. And we have discussed already FCRA, foreign contributions. Foreign funding of persons in India is regulated under the FCRA and implemented by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Individuals are permitted to accept foreign contribution without permission of MHA. However, the monetary limits of acceptance of such foreign contributions shall be less than 25,000. Now, this last question is here. Consider the following statement and select the incorrect option. So, FCRA registrations are granted to individuals. Association have definite cultural, economic, educational, religious and social programs. Once granted, FCRA registration is valid for 5 years. Interest earned from foreign contribution is not considered foreign contributions. Donations given by non-residential Indian NRIs cannot be treated as a foreign contributions. Make sure is the word is incorrect option. Do not find the correct option. There might be one statement that would be incorrect. So it's obvious that we can say it's a incorrect option is C option. Interest earned from foreign contribution is considered, that is mentioned, not word is here. This is considered a foreign, not considered a foreign contribution. This is a wrong statement. Either A, B, and it's valid for the 5 years. The correct options. This is also correct option. Donation given by the non-resident Indians can be treated as a foreign contributions. This cannot be treated as a that does not come under the FCRA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. So only the answer would be here. C option would be the correct answer. So answer is here C. So I hope you enjoyed this session a lot. We'll meet tomorrow at the same time at 11:30 a.m. Stay tuned. If you are new in the channel, please subscribe the channel and subscribe for the more updates, and share the channel link to the many friends who is preparing for the law entrance exam. Thank you so much for joining with us. If you are new in this channel, please subscribe the channel itself. Thank you so much. Bye bye and take care.